everybody, it's Leela from Kreations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's Tumbler tutorial, I am going to put wrapping paper on a 20-ounce stainless steel tumbler that I received from Maker Flow Crafts. I have sanded this tumbler down with a 180 grit sanding block and I wiped it down with 91% alcohol. For this tumbler, I am not going to spray paint or paint. I'm going to keep it stainless steel like it is. I found some really cute wrapping paper at Target. I thought the llamas would look really cute on a tumbler, so I went ahead and I purchased this. I've already cut my wrapping paper down for my 20-ounce skinny stainless steel tumbler. I cut 9 by 10. You can either measure your tumbler top to bottom and the diameter, or you can simply roll the wrapping paper around your tumbler and then cut off the excess whenever you've reached the edges. For the wrapping paper, I have it overlapping just a little bit just to have some wiggle room, just like if I would be wrapping, let's say, vinyl or fabric on the tumbler. And as for the top to bottom, I'm not worried about this because I will be removing the top and the bottom pieces. I'm using Mod Podge to adhere the wrapping paper to the tumbler. And I'm going to start by first applying my Mod Podge around the entire tumbler, and I just want one even coat. It doesn't have to be thick, it just needs to be fully coated around the tumbler. Now that my Mod Podge is applied on my tumbler, I'm going to make sure that my wrapping paper is facing the right way. So when I place it on my tumbler, my llamas are facing up and not down. All I'll be doing is taking the end of the wrapping paper and getting a nice stick on the end, placing it on the tumbler, and I'm starting from the edge and I'm pressing down and I'm just rolling the wrapping paper around the tumbler. So I am doing it from the edge to the other edge. So I am not pressing down towards the middle. I'm just making sure that the entire tumbler will be pressed down, or the entire wrapping paper will be pressed down on the tumbler evenly. Wrapping paper is very thin, so you can see all the little wrinkles in there. So that's why I like to do it this way, and just pressing it down like you would vinyl or any other piece of material on a tumbler. And if you like, you can use your squeegee tool to pull out any of those wrinkles on your tumbler. Whatever is easiest for you. And then going around, pushing out that last bubble. And since the bubble's staying there, I'm going to pick it back up and then place it down again and just really get that good stick. Once I have my wrapping paper adhered to my tumbler, I placed my tumbler on my cup cradle I received from Imagination 3D. I'm using some electrical tape. I'm going to cut off that electrical tape, and I'm placing this electrical tape on the seam, but I'm not placing it where it's going to seal it. So you can see how this overlaps. This piece of my wrapping paper is overlapping the bottom piece. So I'm placing it on top of the piece that's overlapping, and I'm placing it in a straight line, like so. And then you can either take some fabric scissors, or you can take an X-Acto knife and just cut that piece of wrapping paper where you've placed the electrical tape. If you use an X-Acto knife, the line might be a little straighter, but I figured the fabric scissors were a little easier to get in there. And you see, I used that just to create that line. And so now that line is straighter than what it was. And now going in with that same Mod Podge, my Mod Podge hasn't completely dried on the bottom, but that's okay. I'm still going in with that same Mod Podge, and I'm applying another layer of Mod Podge over the wrapping paper. So for this part, I didn't apply any Mod Podge underneath this top layer of wrapping paper, so I'm adding a little bit underneath just so we can have a good seal and so it can fall right into place and those two pieces stick together. So you want to make sure that seam is nice and stuck and it's not peeling up. So when you epoxy, you don't have to worry about it peeking through that epoxy or worrying about having to sand that seam. I'm sure you're wondering about the bottom. That's okay. You can let it keep hanging off like I have here. I'll show you how I'll fix that here in a bit. And once you have your Mod Podge on the top of your wrapping paper, let your Mod Podge dry for about 20 to 25 minutes. So I'll see y'all then. Welcome back, everybody. My Mod Podge is completely dry on my wrapping paper and my tumbler. It did take about 20 to 25 minutes. It has been over 24 hours since I've started filming again. I actually got distracted with other crafts, so I'm just gonna pick this up right where I left off. So I started making 2 of these tumblers, so I thought I'd just create 2 of them with y'all and kind of change it up a little bit. Maybe add something different to each one. So you can see the one that I created with y'all. I have some excess wrapping paper left over. I'm going to cut that off real quick. I'm just wanting a flush tumbler. I want to be able to sit it upright. So I'm just taking my scissors and cutting all the way around the tumbler. I don't care that it's going to be nasty and ripped like that. I just want to make sure that I don't have any excess hanging off. For my next step, I am using that cup edging tool from Wicked Shimmer. What this tool does is it cuts your tumbler using a razor blade and you don't have to freehand it, and it makes it very straight. It comes with some pieces here that you could place underneath the razor blade and you can make your cut higher or lower. So I think that's really cool. I like that they do that. So I want to make my cuts a little higher. So I'm going to remove some of these washers and add it to the bottom of my razor blade piece. And that's going to lift the razor blade and make my cut higher. So right now I have 2 washers on each side. I'm going to put 4 washers on each side. What you do is place your tumbler against the razor blade and you just push towards the razor blade, spinning your tumbler just like you see me doing. It is very simple, and like I told y'all, this is a tool that is great for these projects specifically, and this works so well. I don't know if you've seen my fabric tumbler tutorial or not, but I use this on cutting fabric, and it cuts through fabric as well. So it's just a regular razor blade, but applying that pressure evenly really does cut through a lot of stuff. So I just like to give it 2 good spins, and then I tug at it either with my finger or an X-Acto knife to see if it's cut, and it typically does cut. And then I take that piece and I peel it right off. For this tumbler specifically, I painted it with acrylic paint because I was going to do another project, so that's why it's giving me kind of a hard time. It's peeling up the acrylic paint, but that's all right. I didn't start with a stainless steel tumbler. So now that I have the bottom, you can see that straight line cut. I'm going to go ahead and do the top. Again, place the tumbler towards the razor and press towards the razor, spinning the tumbler on that base there. Do 2 good spins and then it will peel right off. I peeled the excess wrapping paper off of the top and bottom, and I sanded it some since I did have that acrylic paint on this tumbler. And now to my other tumbler, I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'll see y'all soon. So if you did the same thing as I did, waited over 24 hours to remove that wrapping paper, you might have to sand down some of the adhesive or Mod Podge because it did get stuck on there pretty well. But if you wait your 20 to 30 minutes to have the Mod Podge dry, you should be able to remove that wrapping paper with ease. I used a 120 grit sanding block. You can use 180, it doesn't matter. I just went around the top lightly and sanded away that excess and you can see that nice sharp line I created, and there's some more adhesive on the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing and just go around there and sand away all of that Mod Podge. I don't want that sticky look whenever I epoxy, because that will show through epoxy. All right, I have both of my tumblers excess wrapping paper removed, so I'm finished with my cup edging tool. Don't worry about the little pieces of acrylic paint. We're going to hide that on this one. This other one right here has no acrylic paint, no adhesive, so we're probably going to keep the top exposed with that stainless steel. So starting with the one with the stainless steel is completely exposed. Since I am placing wrapping paper on a tumbler, I thought why not take some ribbon and try to place ribbon on a tumbler as well. So I found this ribbon at Target. It's nothing special, it's just glitter ribbon, gold, copper, silver, and white. I think this gold, more yellow gold will look great with this. It's gonna really accent those llamas. So what I'm going to do is just place the ribbon around the tumbler, get a rough estimate of where to cut that ribbon. I have the piece here. Make sure that fits all the way around. It does. Take my scissors and make that cut more straight now that I know it's going to fit. Take another piece of ribbon and just cut the same piece. So I'm just going to cut that same length. So I have two pieces of ribbon. So I'm going to apply my ribbon the same way I applied my wrapping paper using my Mod Podge. And I don't know if I specify the type of Mod Podge I use, but I just use the clear Mod Podge. It doesn't matter which color, if it's dishwasher safe or not. I just make sure that it does dry clear. I have my Mod Podge brush and I'm going to start with the bottom. I'm placing my Mod Podge between the line of where that wrapping paper stops. So I'm just placing it right at the end of that wrapping paper. So I want a nice even coat. I just want to make sure that I'm getting it coated completely, because obviously if I don't place that Mod Podge in a spot, then the ribbon won't stick to that tumbler. So you can see it's nice and sloppy. Taking my ribbon, just placing it on the tumbler. It's still wet, so what I can do is move it around, so I'm not really concerned exactly where I place it at first. Probably easier to use some backwards tweezers or some tweezers to place that so your hands don't get too sticky. And I'm going to sit my tumbler straight up, eyeball where I want that ribbon to be placed, and it looks like it was that easy, and I laid it down pretty straight. So just make sure it is straight on there. For my next step, I'm taking my finger and I'm lightly pressing down on that ribbon onto the tumbler. I want to make sure that ribbon is nice and snug to that tumbler, but I'm not smearing my hand, I'm not rubbing on the tumbler. I'm simply pressing down and up. I don't want to get Mod Podge too much on that ribbon. I don't want to get like adhesive like I did there, but if you do get Mod Podge on the ribbon, it's no big deal. You can always wipe it off later with 91% alcohol. Now that the bottom's finished with that first step, I'm going to repeat that on the top, placing it right at the end of that wrapping paper where it meets the tumbler, all the way around the tumbler. Taking that piece of ribbon and placing it right on top, right at the end, overlapping the tumbler and the end piece of the wrapping paper. This one didn't lay down like I wanted, like the other one, which is fine. I'm going to take my backwards tweezers, try to get the end of it, lift it back up, spin my tumbler around, and place it again. I'm spinning my tumbler as I'm placing that ribbon and making sure that line or ribbon is as straight as you can get it. Now this one's a lot sloppier than the bottom, which is fine. I'll just go ahead and remove that with either 91% alcohol once it dries. We could take a baby wipe and remove it now, or we can sand it off later. So there's plenty of options on how to remove that Mod Podge. And before I do that, I'm going to take my finger again and just press along that ribbon, not smearing or smudging, just pressing up and down so I can have that ribbon adhere to that tumbler well. Okay, just making sure that it's straight. And it looks like both sides are pretty straight. I'm going to let this tumbler dry for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to work on the next tumbler. Before I let this tumbler dry, I had another idea kick in, so I'm going to use firecracker and spill it everywhere from Glitter Heart Co. and spray my tumbler with that spray adhesive and add little chunkies around the bottom as well. I use Krylon spray adhesive. I do purchase this from Amazon. I just spritz around the tumbler where that green glitter is with that spray adhesive, and I'm taking my firecracker. I have very little inside of my container because I want to see if this is going to look cute. So I just want to barely add any, but I want to add a little bit just to have that Christmas feel. Just little speckles for now, and I can always add more when I'm finished. And whenever they stick up, especially since I'm adding such a little amount, I just take my finger and I just place it down immediately so it can stick right to that other glitter. So this is just to accent it just a little bit more so it doesn't look like there's grass on the bottom of my tumbler. It might look a little more Christmassy this way. Get the bottom there. So we might have another idea for springtime tumblers. Add some grass like this. It's a cute idea. So what I'm doing is I'm taking little pieces of the glitter and just placing it down manually with my finger and pressing it down into that glitter. And now for one last color, I'm using Simplicity. I placed it on my paper here and I'm adding little chunks of that. This is a really pretty gold glitter. I know y'all are probably telling me to stop touching this tumbler, but I don't want this to look like grass at the bottom, like Llama is just walking in the grass. So I figured just little pieces of the gold and the red will make it look a little bit more Christmassy than what it was looking like before. And I did spray another coat of adhesive. So I sprayed adhesive, I added the red, and then I sprayed more adhesive, and now I'm adding the gold. And I'm pressing down all of those chunky glitters to make sure it sticks nicely on that tumbler. I don't know if y'all can see, but I'm sure y'all can see. I didn't cut my piece of wrapping paper big enough for this one. It doesn't look too bad. Instead of recutting it, I just laid it down. Okay, I promise that's going to be my last color on this tumbler. So this is how the tumbler is going to look. My Mod Podge is completely dry underneath it. Now for my next step, I want to hide the top some because I let it dry. I let the Mod Podge dry for 24 hours and I have that acrylic paint showing, so it looks kind of bad up top. So I want to make sure it doesn't look sloppy. So I'm taking some washi tape and I'm placing it on that wrapping paper all the way around my tumbler. The reason why I'm choosing washi tape is because washi tape has a very light adhesive, and so when I remove this washi tape, I don't want that Mod Podge and wrapping paper to be removed from this tumbler. And now that I have my washi tape on my tumbler, I'm going to take my Mod Podge and apply my Mod Podge just above that washi tape, and then take my mistletoe and apply my mistletoe right to the top without trying to make a huge mess. Right, tap off the excess, and then while my Mod Podge is still wet, remove that washi tape. You can either take a paintbrush for this step or just use your fingers. I'm taking my fingers and just wiping away some of that glitter that went underneath that line off the tumbler. I'm going to take my tumbler arm and gently place my tumbler back on its football so it can be easier for me to handle. And you can add another layer of glitter if you like, so let that Mod Podge dry, add another layer of Mod Podge over the glitter, and then apply more glitter over the Mod Podge. I'm then going to let my Mod Podge dry underneath the glitter. Once my Mod Podge is dry underneath the glitter, I'm going in with my Krylon Crystal Clear acrylic coating. I'm taking this tumbler outside, and I'm going to spray 2 generous coats of my acrylic coating all over my tumbler. I want to make sure that I am sealing this glitter in, so when I go to epoxy, this glitter does not move at all. Before you spray it with your acrylic coating, make sure you wipe off any excess glitter that you have on your tumbler, because whenever you spray this tumbler with their acrylic coating, where that glitter is where that glitter is going to stay. So I'm going to let my Mod Podge dry, spray my tumbler, and then we'll check in with the next tumbler. As for my first tumbler, I am going to add my Mod Podge around that ribbon, just like I did with the wrapping paper. I want to make sure this ribbon is completely sealed in. So when I apply that epoxy, that ribbon isn't going to curl up or poke through that epoxy and making it difficult for me in the long run. And then I'm going to do the same up top. Once I'm finished with this, I'm going to let this dry as well, and then we'll check on it once it's dry. My Mod Podge is dried on the top and the bottom half where I placed my ribbon. I'd rather be safe than sorry with that ribbon not peeling up, so I'm going to apply my quick coat from CCDIY. This is just a urethane sealer, and I will have this in my description below, and I'm placing this right along that part where I place the ribbon. So I'm placing it on the top and the bottom of the ribbon just to have that ribbon secure into place. And I'm also going to add the sealer where the wrapping paper meets. So the initial seam that we placed earlier, I want to make sure that it's completely sealed. And then the top. This sealer takes about 10 to 15 minutes to dry. Once this is dry, I'll go into epoxying this tumbler and the second tumbler. I am only planning to do one coat of epoxy for these tumblers, so I might do 30 milliliters of epoxy per each tumbler. So that's 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B per tumbler. If you need assistance on how to epoxy a tumbler, I do have a help tutorial in my description below to help you along with epoxying a tumbler. So I'm going to place both of these tumblers under epoxy, and then I'll see y'all with the finished results. Welcome back, everybody. My tumblers have been epoxied and they are completely cured. For the glitter tumbler, I end up using 30 milliliters of epoxy, so 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B. And for the non-glitter tumbler, I end up using about 20 milliliters of epoxy, 10 part A and 10 part B. And here are the finished products. You can see from top to bottom how cute these are and how different they are. Really have fun with your wrapping paper, grab some fun designs, and just create a beautiful tumbler. I'm sure it will look great. And I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.